Cruel Justice Weekly Conversations powered by Witness to Innocence, WTI. My name is Herman Lindsay. I'm Florida's 23rd Death Row exoneree. I am the Secretary of the Board of Witness to Innocence, and I'm the host of this show for right now. Today, we have a very great friend of mine and on-point guy, the Executive Director of Witness to Innocence, Kirk Bloodsworth. He was the first person to have DNA testing led to being exonerated from death row. He's going to tell his story today. He is an advocate for post-conviction DNA testing, and there is a federal fund named after him to help pay for the cost of pay for post-conviction DNA testing. Kurt, so would you mind introducing yourself? You on mute. You on mute. You on? Okay.
Okay,
You
here I
mute?
go. Kirk Bloodsworth, Witness to Innocence Executive Director. Been here for it'll be 2 years come October, Herman. It's hard to believe it's been that quick. 2 years went by like a bullet. As you know, we're an organization comprised of and led by death row survivors. I was deputy director for about 2 weeks. So a fella that was running the show was stepped down for a personal reason, and I just stood up for the job, and here I am. It took me a long way to get here. I've been an advocate against the death penalty since I was in prison, of course. Never really had an opinion of it, and I went to prison. As a matter of fact, today's the 13th, right, Herman? Today's the 13th. I went to prison on August 9th, 1984, and never seen light of day again as a free man for 8 years, 10 months, and 19 days. Do you want me to go ahead, Ray, and tell my story, Herman, or?
Yeah. What I want to know is, okay, how did you end up on death row for a crime you did not commit? Tell us the story of when you first heard about DNA testing.
Okay. Well, my case was based on a witness identification of a man who was described as 6'5", curly blonde hair, bushy mustache, tan skin, and skinny. I was about 6 foot tall. My hair was as red as a fire plug, and I had red sideburns. And to say I was skinny or tan might have been suggested as a compliment, but that wasn't me. I weighed 200-some plus pounds. I wore glasses ever since I was a little kid. They happened to be broke at the time. But it all ensued by 5 identification witnesses positively identified me as the last person seen with Don Hamilton. Now, they didn't do it in the lineup. As a matter of fact, this was all based on the testimony of 2 little boys who were 8 and 10 at the time, and seen this fella come right up to him. They said, but the sun was behind his head. They were fishing at the time and caught this turtle. A search ensued for the killer in this case. And Don Hamilton was found murdered 2:30 in the afternoon. These 2 little boys suggested that the person that came up to them led Dawn, or she led him into the woods. Then she was later found killed. It was the most brutal murder. When you think of children, you just, it gets in my throat. It gets in anybody's throat. Somebody would do that to a kid, but you have that in your face, and then you have the person who's been accused of the crime. And I told anyone and everyone I was an innocent man from the moment I was arrested until the time I was released. And I took 8 months from the time I was arrested until I went to the Maryland Penitentiary and sat on death row for 2 years and almost lost my life. I never will forget it as long as I live. And that happened 37 years ago, the 9th of this month. It was when this was, I was 23 years old, never been arrested, honorably discharged Marine with no criminal record or criminal history. And, you know, I could have died in prison. I remember after the gavel came down on my life, the courtroom, in the courtroom just erupted in applause, Herman. It was the greatest, you know, I was so vilified by this crime, and this was, you know, a little girl that I'd never met in my life. I never knew, never been to her, wherever she lived or anything. They just blamed me because this whole thing started by a next door neighbor calling the police department and saying the composite sketch looks like my neighbor, Kirk. And that's how it all began. It took a long time before I found out the key to my freedom.
After you was, do you know if DNA testing led to the conviction of someone else?
Oh, absolutely. That took a little time though, Herman. So I was convicted and sentenced to death and sent to the Maryland Penitentiary for all that time. And DNA wouldn't even come into this thing until the last part of my incarceration. It was about the 8-year mark. It was in 1992. I was released in 93. And that DNA was the new thing. And they tested my blood and everything. And I was free based on the DNA analysis done in Dawn's case. And they found semen on her body and on her clothing, and did a test on it, and it exonerated me straight away. That made me the first person in the United States to be freed by post-conviction DNA testing. And I was set free on June 28th, 1993. And I stepped out a free man. But it would take, Herman, it would take another 10 years to find out who the real killer is. But we did in the end. And guess how tall he was, Herman? He wasn't 6'5". He was 5'6" and 160 pounds. And witness identification is one of the most leading causes of wrongful conviction, compiled with prosecutorial misconduct by never telling us about another suspect in the case, which they did. My case was overturned, and that's how I wound up getting double life. But at the end of the rainbow, it took another 10 years to catch the real killer. He was sleeping in the same prison with me in the tier below me for 5 years. Right under my nose.
One of the things I find in most of these cases, and I think this is one of the reasons I love doing what I'm doing, is because society, when in the jury, when you was going on trial, because it was a young child involved, you know, and the profile of the case and things like that, they just assume that you was this animal, this bad guy, you know, without even trying to actually know that the case was improperly investigated. You know, so basically when your picture appeared in the paper, or they were saying that you was arrested, society had already convicted you. And that's one of the things that is very disturbing to me, is because just because a person is arrested for this murder, and it's a gruesome murder or a horrifying murder, you know, and that person is arrested, society automatic feels like that they got that person and that person is actually guilty. And in your case, it shows a prime example of, you know, you got the strongest evidence right there to show that you wasn't the one, and because of that evidence, it allowed you to walk free. But this should also be a lesson to those that's being on the jury that's listening to the media and everything, and just sit back and do their nails because they feel like they got the right person, instead of holding the state up to proving the burden of proof. And half of them don't even know what reasonable doubt means. So now we stuck with an innocent man on death row, such as yourself, with a possibility of being executed, all because society looked at this crime as a horrific crime, and because the police arrested you, you're the person. And I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I have to tell you, you're absolutely right, Herman. It's so if I could basically arrest anyone, if we go back, I give you an example. The Atlanta Olympic bombing. Remember that in Atlanta, Georgia? There was a fella, and I can't remember his name, but there was a film made out about this guy, and they basically, basically told this cat what happened, and they framed him and rolled him through the coals, and all they had to do was put him on TV. Sure enough, Richard something, and Richard Jewell was his name, and the next thing you know, it's they're trying. He's fighting for his life, but that's how it happens, because we're so used to seeing the police in action. I would assume that that's why a lot of things have been happening lately. They believe that they have the right to do something because they think, and not vetting anything. Shootings have happened across the country because of stuff like that. A guy jogging down the street, and bad. People just take up their own devices and say to themselves, "Well, the cop. There must have been some reason they arrested him." And the reason is because they want you to shut up, the public. And certainly that happened in my case. They kept saying everything. I was a transient. I didn't, I moved to Baltimore, and it gives us, and they say your whole name when they just really tried to vilify you from the very beginning, and so they can win the case. And they were so far off, they walked over the real person to get to me. There was a police report about the real killer. His name is Kimberly Shea Rubin. Now, they had a report about that guy 8 days before I was arrested. That's a week and a day, and they never went to check on that guy because they arrested me. They had everything they wanted. And even the detectives saying he's got blood in his name. All kinds of different little quirks and clicks that they could get to snap me into the reasonable doubt puzzle. And it was so far off, they just didn't have any idea what they were doing. So,
I want to reflect back to the movie Just Mercy. We all witnessed the innocent scene with Just Mercy. And so, hopefully some of y'all seen it. If not, see it. It's reality.
It's a powerful film.
What I want to reflect back is back to what I was saying and things is that if you look at when the state attorney, when Brian stepped to the state attorney and we was talking about opening his case back up, he was saying that he don't want to open this case up because the people know who did it. The people know that it was a terrible crime that happened. So they didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to open it back up to go for to prove Walter innocent, because what was society was thinking. What was society was thinking. So that itself comes to say that our members of society are lack of knowledge of what's really going on. We have to educate them, because they don't understand when they're making a judgment on the jury, they're making a judgment of a person's life. And we have to get state attorneys and elected officials to understand that they can't do what the people want them to do. They need to do what is justice. And that movie showed you right there, and there's many other cases throughout the exonerations that shows that because of the horrific crime, society never even gave the defendant a chance. Nope. And that's real bad, you know. But the good thing about it is, like, Kirk, you came out, and why don't you tell us, how did you get involved in advocating for post-conviction DNA testing, and how did the federal fund in your name come about?
Well, it was the year 2000, and I was asked to speak at the National Press Club in D.C. with Patrick Leahy and Barry Scheck, and there was Bill Delahunt there. He was a congressman from Massachusetts, and several others, and to support this piece of legislation. And Clive Charles was there too. And Clive Charles is a Louisiana exoneree that spent 20 years down there in Angola. And they had come up with a bill that suggested that there would be a test that provided by the state government, by the federal government, from the National Institute of Justice on, and this program was post-conviction DNA testing, which nobody was getting this stuff. Nobody was getting, because seeing it in indigent defendant like myself, I couldn't pay for it. My lawyer, who is a chief judge in Washington, D.C. now, he's the one that paid for it, him and his law firm, which was over $10,000 back in those days. It was a lot of money to do this testing. And so I wanted to push to get testing for, several people, anybody that ever needed it. And we made it so the state, the prosecutor, could use it too to prove innocence or guilt. So the Kirk Bloodsworth post-conviction DNA testing program came to life, and I supported it. And I'm happy to say that since it's been, took a long time to get that stuff running, over close to 100 people have been exonerated through the Bloodsworth grant. And I'm very proud of that. And Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont and a couple others asked me to, they could name it after me. And out of the Innocent Protection Act, that was the only thing that got any funding for years. And I'm trying to think of the lady's name. She was in it as well to get rape kits testing. And if I think about it, I'll tell you all. But we were the only ones to get it, and we just got boosted, over $10 million this last trip. So they did a markup in the bill, and we're going to get some more people involved. But I was in Kentucky, and I'll never forget it. I was there to testify about the death penalty and try to get the death penalty raised. And I was standing there, this guy named Michael Llewellyn. who I never met this man in my lifetime. And he came up to me and he says, "Are you Kirk Bloodsworth?" And the Innocent Project was there. And I said, "Here he is right here." And I'm just so happy because I remember sitting in that cell by myself and nobody supporting me, and wonder if I could get because I didn't know how we were going to pay for this thing. But Mike Llewellyn didn't have to worry about it. He already had the program, and he's out of prison and living his life out there in the Kentucky Derby somewhere in Louisville. So when you see people like that, man, it's a big thing. That was a long ass answer, but that's how things happen. You just I'm just proud as I can be of it. That's all.
When you first got it, I know most cases, even including myself, we proclaim we're innocent, we're screaming out innocence, we write out letters, we try to do everything we can to the organizations and trying to get help to get someone to help us to prove our innocence. The task was very difficult back then. Could you tell me, is it much easier now to get someone to look at an innocent case compared to it was back then?
Well, it's a lot easier nowadays. I mean, I think. But having said that, you have to vet the case. And I talked to Barry Scheck not too long ago, and he told me, they're pouring in at Innocent Project. Now, there's a whole lot of innocent projects. There wasn't any innocent project back when I got out of prison. And it didn't happen until a year later that Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld started the organization. Now, we consulted with Barry, and my lawyer, Bob Moran, consulted with him, and we knew where to go take the testing. Now, there was only 2 DNA labs in the United States at that time. There was one in California, which I had my test done. Edward Blake was there. And then there was another one in Boston, and I can't remember the fellow's name. And the FBI had not yet come online. Now, those tests cost a ton of money, man. But today, you could get a DNA test pretty simple. But to get a good one, like, the ones in the program, it takes some money. And I think it's easier access to DNA testing now than it's ever been. And, you just have to have the right people to push it. Now, they have a whole vetting process, and they go through that before you ever come to that door. But certainly they've allowed you to have the key to open it if you're innocent.
No, I was looking at a petition over here. They want people to sign for James Daly in Florida, which I'll address a little bit later. Kirk, I know you spoke out calling for DNA tests in specific cases, and I know that those efforts was not always been successful. Can you tell us about the Seeley Alley? Oh,
Sedley.
Sedley.
Yeah, I worked on that case and we were, I was asked about 13 years ago. It's been a while. I remember going to Tennessee and going inside a prison. Now, I haven't been back in no jail. I haven't been back in no prison. Especially so in Tennessee, that's where the parole hearings are and all the different claims. So they had to go in front of the parole board and help Sedley Alley out. Now, to give a little background on Sedley Alley's case, he was charged with killing a female Marine, and the description of the person that killed her, the witness said, was 5'10", short hair, short mustache, and a panel car. Sedley Alley he was 6'5", a full red beard. He was as red haired as I was, you know. And I thought this was all vaguely familiar. He had a big back problem. And, you know, I went to this hearing in Tennessee when they were getting ready to execute him. We wanted to get the DNA tested in his case. They gave him a 30-day stay because of our testimony in the parole board. And I went through this jail, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I got myself into. But we wanted to help him, and sure enough, but the governor of Tennessee and Shelby County all just, you know, beat it right down and wouldn't test Sedley's DNA in the case, and they wound up executing him. And the saddest day of my life was getting a call from his daughter. You know, me, it was, I've known her now for over a decade or more, and she was just a little gal back when this happened and was very confused. Is handling it all on her own now. But they killed her father and wouldn't test the evidence. I think that is the most tragic thing that could ever happen in the criminal justice system. You won't say you're wrong. I think that's the worst thing we can do as people, not say that we're wrong.
And I think that's where we've been expressing on every show that this people of the community should know the state attorneys that they're voting in to. They need to research those and see what the true values of it. If they seeking are they seeking justice, or is they seeking a politician job? You know, some of them they abuse their power, and we have a lot of prosecutor misconduct and things like that leading to this. But Kirk, I want to step back a little bit in your case. You know, we had Kwame, who was the chairman of the board, on here a couple of weeks ago, and I know something that's in common, that, you know, y'all both had youth as witnesses, and when them youth are witness are brought forth. In your case, was the parent there when the police was questioning the youth?
Say that again.
Was the parents, when the police was asking the child, in your case, the question, the one that identified, was the parent there?
No, it's what happened is that the police brought him over there, and I think the mother or somebody, the mothers were somewhere in the area. They might have even been in the lineup procedure themselves. But the thing what happened is that they never identified me in the lineup. It wasn't until 2 weeks later their parents called and said they made a mistake. By that time, I was all over the news, and they said, well, here's the guy that really did it. But they never said so. One person didn't pick him. And one of the boys said he was scared to pick me. But, you know, it was because the police put me on TV before the lineup, and everybody in the witnesses see me on television long before. And all 8 months leading up to my trial, you know, it'd be hard for them not to. And they did it deliberate, I'm sure. And but everybody said that they had watched me on television long before the lineup, so they had an idea. But so how witness identification works is if so you got two people, you seen this one fellow, and then you seen this other fellow. The faces come and superimpose each other. Albert Einstein said that memory is deceptive because it's colored by today's events. And he was absolutely right. Witness identification is like 80% of the reason wrongful conviction happens in the first place. One of the biggest cases was right in your state of Florida. And I am trying to think, William Dedge, 8 people positively identified that guy of this rape. And once they found that it wasn't him, and they found a real person by DNA too, they let him out in the middle of the night, so nobody would never know about it. And came at like 3 o'clock in the morning to pick him, so the news wasn't there or nobody. And this is the kind of things that happen. I've seen too many of them in my life. We have over 2,000 plus exonerated people in America, and throughout the world, more than that. It's we're doing a disservice to the legal system by putting innocent people away, because you can, by virtue of your talents and making 12 people believe anything. I mean, they got a bunch of people out here believe Dr. Fauci's working for Satan. I mean, that's what the hell I'm saying. It's don't be gullible. Listen to the evidence and follow the facts before you make a judgment call, and just don't do it on television. But
I'm gonna move on to something that you are familiar with. I wanted to talk about. Forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. Pervis Payne case. He has spent 32 years on death row in Tennessee. He is said to be executed on December 3rd. He has no prior criminal record and has an intellectual disability. He has maintained his innocence from the very beginning and said he was an innocent bystander who tried to help and ended up being wrongfully implicated in the crime. At trial, he was not able to fully defend himself because of his disability. The prosecution used racial stereotypes which are known to contribute to wrongful conviction. There are other suspects, and finally, while we are talking about this case today, there is untested DNA evidence in his case. Why is the DNA testing so hard for a person that proclaimed innocent? And there's a possibility, there's a great possibility that they are innocent, such as in this case.
Well, Shelby County is the same county that Sedley Alley was convicted and executed in. He had the same kind of deal that Pervis got. And so the only thing that I can think of is Shelby County don't want to test it because it's not going to help Shelby County. They've already convicted the man, sentenced him to death for what I think is slipshod evidence, if all. And they should do the DNA testing. I don't know if it'll help him, but if there's a viable way to do it, they should give every chance they can to a person that's maintained their innocence for this long, and is constantly saying it. But it is the prosecution of Shelby County and that in Tennessee that's doing this to the man, and they need to quit it. Ray Crone and I and Sabrina Butler went down there this past spring before all this mess happened and spoke out against for Sedley Alley to get tested again. So I think that that should be everybody that believes that about Pervis and his innocence should be calling Shelby County for the DNA test. Call. Don't let them kill another innocent person. And the problem is that they won't reinvestigate or review the case of these people because it doesn't help them. And if it doesn't help them, you're dead. I hate to say it, but he has to have his day in court, I hope. And God bless him. You know, it's a hell of a thing, as you well know, Herman, to sit in that hole and wait for you to die, especially when you didn't do anything wrong and you're going to die for nothing. And we gotta take pause, man, and do everything we can to prove that they are in fact either innocent or guilty. Um, and even if they are guilty, we might want to do away from the death penalty because, and that's our stance as people who witness innocence as the executive director. That's our mission. You know, they shouldn't execute anybody, let alone Pervis.
The question of it is, I know Shelby County District Attorney Amy Wyrich is opposing the DNA tests, which a lot of state attorneys does that. And you know, it's bad how it's a claim of innocent and DNA that's there that they are refusing to test in the DNA, especially when they know that DNA is taking a very important role these days as showing a person innocence, showing that you know, they can go and possibly find the right perpetrator, such as that. It happened. Prime example, it happened in your case because they took the DNA. It didn't go back as a cold case, but the case actually got solved. And I don't understand. And what is your opinion why state attorneys do that? I mean, they're supposed to be seeking justice, but I think the court should make it wait everybody with DNA be tested.
The prosecutors do this to avoid any you know, revetting of the case. They don't want to revet it. This was a big thing Scalia said in the Supreme Court all the time. A sentence properly rendered is no reason to stop this a death sentence. You can't do that. And they'll argue till the cows come home because it don't help them. And they don't want to give any quarter to anybody that has a claim that could prove their innocence because it would disprove what they made 12 people believe for 13 years. They do it for, they want a clean record, you know, and if you don't, the bad thing is if you execute the man, how can he ever prove his innocence? Well, the point is that they don't want him to. They made a jury believe he was guilty, and that's the way they want to leave it. And they'll do anything in their power to kill him. And I was reading about this, and if I'm not sure, their argument, the Shelby County prosecutor's argument for doing this was based on a 2006 decision that was overruled by the Supreme Court in 2011. So, you know, I don't, if I'm reading that right, I believe that's correct. And they just were going to blanket stop him for trying to get any DNA, just like they did Sedley Allen, and you know, they want to kill people, and the rush to judgment is what got us both here. And I wouldn't, you know, not test that DNA in the case if it's going to help him. And you know, you got to do everything you can to prove innocence in America today, because it's your ass, and everybody, you know, you're the one sitting on the hammer, and people got to realize that if it can happen to you and me, Herman, it can happen to anybody in America.
What can people do that you know, help with this Payne case, the issue. I know there's plenty of times that we as witness innocents, we stepped up, such as the Rodney Reed case, the Julius Jones cases, and many other cases. What can the people do now to actually, you know, help out with this? I know they can stay informed by joining the Witness Innocent mail list, and we'll keep them up to date. They can share Payne's case on Twitter. So what else do you think is real effective on this? I mean, like the Julius Jones case, they had 200,000 signatures. Now it's up to like 8 million signatures. What can people do to help with this case, in your opinion, with your experience with that county?
If it was me, I would say that you have to, you know, do all the things with witness innocence, as he said, and organizations that are helping him with this. But I would call and write Shelby County, talk to that Ms. Woolrich, and get the DNA done in the case. Tell them not to execute this man based on everything they've seen. Start a petition out if they want. Make it just like that. Everybody should petition every death sentence in America because they could kill an innocent person. Now, we don't know who they are by the virtue of whether it's if you talk about the federal death penalty, it's the review of the cases that are so bad. But man, call them out on their stuff. You got to make people stand up for what they said made 12 people believe, which is a bunch of guff. You know, they used to say the same things about us, Herman. The same things. The prosecution saying about Pervis, they said the same things about us. So I would call them and call them, you know, call it what it is, and it's just, you know, political grandstanding. They don't want to. It's prosecutors want to. They're hired by, you know, they're elected just like a lot of other political officials, and you got to hold. They're worried about what their constituents say, and if it's, I don't care what happened. The prosecutor in my case got so much crap over after she let me go that they just even made it worse. So this is what prosecutors do, okay, Herman? So when they let me go on June 28th, 1993, DNA proved he's innocent, blah, blah, blah. And then they get out there and they say, well, if we had this evidence in 1984, we wouldn't have prosecuted Bloodsworth. But we're not prepared to say he's innocent. Now you tell me what the hell that means. It means that they don't want to say they're sorry. They don't want to say they were wrong more than, and they just want to vilify a person that's never done a damn thing in his life. And just like Pervis, you know, just standing there trying to help somebody. I don't know, but they shouldn't execute the man, and that's how that crap happens, because they don't want the egg on their face. And we got to stop thinking like that. The constituents not going to like it. Well, they let a killer go loose for 8 years. I mean, almost 8. You know, not 8 years, but he was loose. He was arrested. The killer in my case was arrested. I think it was 8 weeks or something after. That's 2 months. You know, and he attacked another woman while I was out there. This isn't public safety. This is politics, and they got to stop it.
I want, you know, and that we talked about state attorneys and, you know, how important it is for people to vote and look, be careful who they voting for. You know, I want to say for the records that there are some good state attorneys out there. In fact, I want to talk about our accuracy and justice workshop that we offer at Witness the Innocent. And with that being said, Kirk, with accuracy and justice, we've met with state attorneys all across the world. I mean, across the United States. And those state attorneys have put together interrogator units and innocent claim units, like Andrew Warren of Tampa, Hillsborough. He just recently opened an innocent claim unit as well as an interrogator unit in his
conviction integrity unit, right?
Yeah, conviction integrity unit. Correct. Thanks for the correction. And this program has been very successful as far as meeting with state attorneys. And when we meet with the state attorneys, we also have police officers in there. We have lab reporters. So many different people from the prosecuting side of a criminal case. And we are talking back and we're telling my stories and we're answering questions. From your point of view, how effective does you see, and what's the great benefit out of this accuracy and justice workshop that we offer to them?
Well, I think
justice too.
You know, it's accuracy and justice program is a great way to get into the prosecutor's office in a sense and show them the systemic troubles of why wrongful convictions happen and what's happened to some of them. And I'm certainly aware that accuracy and justice has helped a lot of people across the planet since we've been doing it. We've created a lot of change. People are not just going after I've never personally worked with conviction integrity units because Witness to Innocence does not work on necessarily cases, although we promote innocence of people, something new because of my tenure here and my leadership as the executive director. So we try to work on that, James Daly and Pervis and different cases. But it brings us in a room together with prosecutors, judges, and police officers. And we never had that ability to show. And that it also shows that, Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore, and why she says, and Kamala Harris too, is it's not about conviction, it's about justice. And so it is no justice to execute an innocent person, even if you can. And so A&J workshops go to that very heart of it. We have 3 panelists, and you and I and several of us have done this. And we talk to, we have a mediator, which is Elizabeth Zittrain out of who's the second chairman, and I can't even think of her title. It's the vice chair of Witness Innocence, and thank you. And we have Dick Dieter, who's the treasurer. Both of them are attorneys. Dick Dieter and Elizabeth Zittrain have worked tirelessly about the death penalty and different issues. Dick was, a big. He was executive director of DPIC, which is the Death Penalty Information Center. And we have 3 very sharp people who have been through this process and know the systemic problems, what broke down in their case. And then to tell the prosecutors this is an idea, well, I'm certainly not going to do that anymore. So I think it's big beneficial help. A&J is, they just finished one today. Everybody getting great reviews across it. Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, we did that one. And I've done a couple in New York of the same kind of stuff. So it's a great program and witness to innocence. You know, it's really it's the first kind of program that this is how we work. You know, you take the coffee shop, my guy's word on the best thing of coffee, because these guys and gals, you know, I've seen them, and I listened to your story, Herman, and all the stories of all the other men and women that are remarkable and are just actually poster children for the death penalty to be abolished, and a poster child to, you know, reform criminal justice system. Elizabeth Zittrain and Dick Dieter are just fabulous. Ray Crone and you know, yours truly there, Herman, you're fabulous, and all these guys and gals get there. I've heard you can hear a pin drop in the room when you guys get speaking. So it's a phenomenal project, and I'm glad to help make it happen all the time, as much as I can.
I got to hit you with this question. Okay,
come on with
because it's like when you first started doing A&J, you per se, and you turn around and you going in now with the state attorney's office, working with the state attorneys. I mean, that is an odd thing. A person that's exonerated from death row actually working with the state attorney to try to make their office better and producing justice instead of miscarriage of justice. How did you feel when you first went in there and just around the state attorney?
It's like I told the crowd I felt like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, because that's about the way I felt. I had never really, you know, I mean, over my time, I've spoken to prosecutors, federal, otherwise attorney generals across the country. So I've spoke to a lot of people in my life. But man, that's something to sit in front of the person that judged you, and judged you with all harshness. But I got to tell you, I never in my life experienced something profound as I have with A&J. It's a great program, and it will continue as long as I can. The prosecutors feel the same way too, by the way. And I've spoken to a lot of them. Baltimore, it was over 400 people that me and Dick and Sabrina and Gary Drinker, Sabrina Butler and Gary Drinker spoke out there, and they were just mesmerized. And by the way, I did the one talk in front of my cousin, who's the prosecutor in the city. So you know, I want someone good. If they're going to convict a person, I want them to convict the right one. And the way that you find out is by the people that have been falsely convicted of what not to do.
I know for me it was amazing. We're getting a little short of time. It's like 5 minutes left on the show. I want to give a shout out to Ron Kine, who was a member of Witness Innocent.
Hey, Ron.
And Roderick Reed.
Hey, Roderick.
And I asked all those. And I ask all those ones that watching, please share our videos over to
and Ron Wright too, man. Ron Wright. Don't forget Ron Wright.
I said Ron Kine and Ron Wright, so they might have did, but I did say Ron Wright and Roderick Reed. Yeah. But I ask people to share this over their Facebook, because believe it or not, this is very educational, and people need to know this. Because majority, as we begin to talk at the beginning, is how society look at things. You know, if they're educated about it and they see things like this here and they learn from it, then they won't be so judgmental at if they're picked for a jury. They'll make sure they learn to hold the state responsible for showing the burden of proof. The state always usually get away with actually shifting the burden of proof to the defendant, because we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But when we go in the courtroom in society looking at things the way they do, we are guilty and we must prove ourselves innocent. So it's a backward system right now, and education and people spreading this word about what's going on and things like that is a great improvement. From the time from 2006 when I'm in 2009 when I was released to now, things have changed dramatically in society as far as the death penalty is concerned. A lot of people are not for the death penalty as people before, because the death penalty is just a way of revenge. It's not a way of justice. You know, there's no justice out of killing someone else, especially when the death certificates read homicide as the cause of death on the execution. And then you got to look at how many people, innocent people, have they actually killed. You know, we don't know that. You know, we don't know that. You know, we get a lot of exonerations and things like that. And you know, suppose Kirk didn't get a DNA test. Suppose they didn't hold a witness, the jailhouse snitch witness requirements higher. You know, we could have lost our lives, and it can happen to the same person, like yourself. I mean, for instance, here's Kirk. Kirk is a veteran, honorable veteran, and this is how society treat him. Now, if he was an honorable veteran and something happened to him, then he'll be raised up. But when he's accused of something, it's like none of that matters. None of that matters. And it's like his word is not truthful. And that's what his life is based on. You know, being truthful, honest, and being a man. That's what our military built him to be. But when he's go to yelling he's innocent, nobody want to hear it. And that's millions, that's thousands of cases around the world is the same way. So we need to share this information and get this out. And you know, we try our best to do these programs every week with something different. You know, and educating people. You know, that, and it's important that you help us out by sharing it on Facebook for one thing. And in a second, I asked Allison if she would give you the other information about how you can support us and help us. But Kurt, before we go and I go to Allison, is there anything you would like to add?
Well, I just want to shout out to Ron Connie, who's probably one of the, you know, he was accused of killing a police officer in New Mexico many years ago, and found out, you know, somebody else did it. And so Ron Wright and everybody else. Also, donate to Witness to Innocence. It's witnesstoinnocence.org/donate. And, you know, we really need your help. We have emergency funds and different things for guys and gals in our organization for exonerated peoples and their family members, which is, you know, a makeup of our board. And so, you know, help us out. That's witnesstoinnocence.org and /donate, and help us out, because Kirk would like you to do it. And, and you know, you could do a lot of things with your money these days. If you have a couple extra bucks, send it to Witness to Innocence. We could really use it.
And I'm gonna just add to that right now. I want those out there to think about this. Imagine you spent so many years in prison. Those years you could have been working and establishing things like that, and not only living your life, but all of that is taken away from you. Then when you found that you were innocent, you know, and they're releasing you from jail, a lot of them didn't get compensated. So they have to get out and live a normal life, try to be a productive person in society. They're behind a lot because of technology is not in prison. You know, they having a big hassle trying to find a job because they have a murder on their record, even though they was exonerated from it. You know, it's so many things that make life complicated that, you know, just being exonerated, you know, the state feels like, hey, you free. So hey, don't argue, you know, so they don't compensate or they make it difficult to compensate for the wrong that they're called. And these programs that witness the innocence actually help a lot of exonerees. I'm not ashamed to say it's been times my lights was off and I, you know, witness the innocent had to step in and pay my light bill, you know, and that's it's not many organizations out there that would do that, and they do everything. They even have sort of like a mental health social thing going on inside Witness Innocent, where you know we can call and we can talk. You know, you got peer counselors and things like that assigned to you that you can call and you can talk when you're having a problem, because the mental state of this of being exoneration is way farther than people could be on. Because one thing you got to look at it is that we was wrongfully convicted and sentenced to die. Now we get out and we trying to make it as a productive person in society, and we got everything holding us back because of this crime that we was accused of. So, you know, things are very, very difficult, and I hope that some of y'all will find it in your heart to, even if it's $2, $5, go to witnessinnocent.org, but just go to witnessinnocent.org. You'll see, read the information. You'll also see a donate button, and just try to help us out here. You know, the money is being well done, because, you know, if my lights get cut off, I'll be wanting nut ups, and I got kids and things like that. We need the help. But most important too, these also help funds the programs that we're offering, that we go and work with these state attorneys, that we go and work with these police officers and state and defense attorneys and things like that, that we go into the colleges and do educational forum about the death penalty and things like that. All of that helps out. We are a nonprofit, so you will. We have our 501c3, so you will get credit for it. For those that's worried about the credit. And with that being said, Kirk, if there's nothing else to say, we're gonna say thank you for joining us at Cruel Justice Weekly Conversation, powered by Witness the Innocent, and hope y'all join us next Thursday at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.